Hello and welcome to another Reaconteur video, and in today's video I'll be going over every oath in Deepwoken and what they're best used for. Make sure to subscribe since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. Also, I'm currently live on Twitch, so drop into the stream after you're done with this video, or you can watch this later, or do both at the same time. Your dopamine receptors need all of that. Anyway, let's get straight into it. First of all is Oathless, the first oath in the game which at one point actually just appeared in your talent card hands. Oathless gives you 10 health, 2 wildcard mantra slots, which is just 2 extra mantras from any category, and the biggest upside to Oathless is a 20% resistance to all damage and effects done from other oaths and oath mantras. It has no stat requirements, but it does have a quest that you only need to do once, and then once you do it you can just talk to the NPC to get it on future lives and other slots more easily. Overall, Oathless is best for PvP since it can basically nerf other oaths, but it is above all a PvP oath since its passive isn't actually beneficial for PvE since monsters and NPCs can't have oaths. Next up is Blind Seer. Blind Seer requires 40 willpower and at least 3 of the 5 talents from the Mental Fortress talent path. You also need a blindfold, and then you have to read the weird Blind Seer text in the Arisia Temple. Anyway, Blind Seer provides you with the ability to see through a blindfold, but that doesn't really matter. Its main upside is the mantras. Mind Soothe is the first mantra, which heals allies around you in exchange for giving you a little bit of insanity. Next up is Sightless Beam, which is just a laser. It does a lot of damage, but you can barely move after it goes out, although you do have hyper armor, so, you know, it can be used to tank through things, but it's pretty hard to land on players. There's also the Blind Seer passive All-Seeing Eye, which allows you to see invisible monsters and players through Tacit. And finally, Tranquil Circle, which is probably the best part of Blind Seer. Tranquil Circle disables all mantra usage on players within its radius. It does not work on bosses, and a Magnet Spark makes Tranquil Circle a radius around you that follows you. Blind Seer is actually pretty good for PvE because the sanity you get for having Blind Seer means that you can be in the depths for a really long time without downside, so you can farm things like Hell Mode easily. On top of that, Sightless Beam does a ton of damage and has hyper armor, allowing it to shred through enemies. Alternatively, it synergizes with Light's Final Tone and Flame Charm because they all need willpower, effectively saving you investment points, but this is a pretty versatile oath, as it can also be used in PvP due to things like Tranquil Circle being really effective. Next up is Vision Shaper, with a 50 charisma requirement being quite steep. Vision Shaper is very good though. It gives you 1 support and 2 combat mantra slots innately, and the oath is mainly skill based as its additions are just kinda mid, being 2 combat and 1 support mantra slots. So let's just get into the moves. First up is Illusory Servants. This mantra spawns a clone that will only use M1 in crits. It also scales down if the opponent has a talent Disbelief, which reduces the duration of the clone. The clones also apply full hit stun, making them super good at ganking with you since you can not be hit by them, so you can kinda just spam the clone to just jump people sometimes. Next up is the Illusory Realm. It teleports you to a fake magic sleep world or something for anywhere from 20 to 44 seconds with logstone modifiers. Bells, Warrior's Respite, and all ritual casts are disabled. For those of you that don't know, a ritual cast is any mantra that makes you press multiple keys to use, like Wisps or Graceful Flame. However, you can still make campfires in here, so if you're kind of ganking and you're jumping some Vision Shaper user, you could still heal with campfires while your friend's fighting. The caster of the Illusory Realm does take 20% less damage in here, and you can't get knocked inside of it. The final 2 moves are Illusory Counter, which switches place with the person who hits you during its activation, catching them off guard. And then Cheap Trick, which makes it so once you're hit at below 50% health, you spawn an Illusory Servant clone to help fight you. And this can stack with the normal Illusory Servant, meaning you can actually spawn another one and 3v1 people with it. Overall, Vision Shaper is a PvP oath and it is quite good, but I don't like Charisma. I know many talents that are in the Charisma tree are really good, like people like Chaotic Charm, but me personally, I don't like Charisma and I don't use it on any of my builds, but it's just a preference. Vision Shaper and Charisma are very good though. Anyway, up next is Star Kindred, requiring 40 strength and 1 player grip. Anyway, the buffs it gives are 8 HP, 2 combat mantra slots, and a modified Fire Blade. The innate ability this oath gives are its wings, which are grown when using any of the 3 Star Kindred mantras. The wings improve air dashes and buff some moves while completely changing the Fire Blade into a new mantra where you fly into the air and strike down with flame pillars. The first mantra is Ascension, which is literally just the winged move from Elden Ring the Crucible Knights use. If you know, you know. Next is Celestial Assault, which is a vertical up tilt slash into a horizontal slash that pushes people slightly away. And finally, Sinister Halo, which is a circle that traps and hits people in it. Overall, Star Kindred is a PvP oath, basically made for Flame Charm with its modifiers to Flame Blade, basically being a new move in itself that's really strong and does a ton of damage. It is quite good though. Next up is Dawnwalker, one of the most popular PvP oaths. Dawnwalker has no stat requirement, making it quite versatile, and it gives 2 combat mantra slots. Dawnwalker's first ability is Blinding Dawn, a massive AoE of light. The next move is Radiant Kick, which is a teleporting kick that can be used to catch people off guard, and it used to true combo into Ash Slam, super balanced. And the final move is Radiant Dawn, which brings you up and strikes down, dealing damage in front of you and launching people away. For passives, you have Protagonist Syndrome, which buffs your Dawnwalker mantras after you get hit by any Shadowcast move, making Dawnwalker a super good counter to all forms of Shadow and Shadowcast builds. Next up is Absolute Radiance, which makes it so after landing a Dawnwalker Oath mantra, you are less affected by elemental effects for a short time. You can tell it's activated by the various colors in a pattern around you. And finally is Luminous Flash. By dealing damage in Absolute Radiance, or I really hate using the word aura, but that is sadly what it is. By dealing damage in your Absolute Radiance aura, you gain a chance to empower your hits, making them do more damage. Also, all Dawnwalker mantras do true damage, so they completely pierce armor. Dawnwalker is just really good for PvP, really good for countering Shadow, and actually a lot of other attunements just because of Absolute Radiance and all that. Regardless, next up is Fade Trimmer, which you need 10 haircuts and power 12 to get. Just strange requirement. If my voice sounds a little bit weird, it's because it is currently 7 AM. It gives 1 combat and 1 wildcard slot, and the abilities are as follows. Precision Cuts, which is just big scissors like Clock Tower, if any of you youngins know what Clock Tower is, but I doubt it. Next is Cloche, which is a movement mantra similar to Gale Lunge, but it's got longer end lag and it's not as flowy, making it not as good of a chaser mantra as Gale Lunge. And you also get a passive that changes the haircuts of people you hit with your Fade Trimmer mantras to whatever you select. So it's like a little menu and you select what haircuts you want to change it to. You can get banned if you put anything bad there though, so don't do that. Now this is a PvP oath, but it's more of a joke. And while the mantras are fine, it gets outclassed by many other things, making it a bit of an unreliable oath to use it for PvP, especially when compared to other oaths. If you like the haircut mechanic though, it is fun and worth using. Metamancing is boring anyway, so just stick to what you think is fun. Next up is Arcwarder, which is actually one of my least favorite oaths. I just don't like it. With a dual attunement requirement being 20 Flame Charm and 20 Thundercall, it is quite unique and often paired up with Hero's Blades or other elemental weapons. It gives you 1 wild card and 2 combat mantra slots, and the main focus of this is the support mantra Arc Suit, which gives you the Arcwarder suit of armor, which can be modified, so Vibrant Gems will increase its damage reduction to a maximum of plus 10%, and it can also be modified with Logstones for duration up to a minute, which is pretty good. The suit is pretty much the entire kit because all the talents give passives, you know, for like Jet Boots, better aerial dashes, enchant nullification, and ejection, which protects you from guard breaks by breaking the suit of armor and it drops your posture down to half. You're also immune to backstabs. Arcwarder comes with 2 mantras, Arc Wave, which is an AoE blast around you, and Arc Beam, which is a laser you fire out of your eyes. Overall, Arcwarder is good for both PvP and PvE. In PvP, it's good for the armor's damage reduction and protection, while in PvP, the better movement and enchant nullification guard break protection can be highly beneficial, so it can be used versatilely in different builds depending on what you want to use it for. Next is Salt Alchemist with an incredibly high 75 intelligence requirement. It's basically made to be paired with the Flareblood Comet since they both need a lot of intelligence to be optimal. It provides 1 support and 1 wildcard mantra slots and gives 20 carry load, obviously for potions. Salt Alchemist is kinda hard to explain. It basically just gives you a new automatic brewing system for potions and passives that allow you to alter their positive and negative effects and other properties, like if the potion leaves a misty AoE or not, if the effect of the potion is inverted. If it's the same potion with positive and negative effects, you can remove just the positive or just the negative effects. It's kind of hard to explain. Salt Alchemist is definitely more for PvP than PvE since potions are much better against players and monsters. And I would talk more about it, but I'm not good with the potions and stuff. I'm honestly not entirely sure how it works extensively just because I've never used it and I don't like potions. It is a very interesting oath and definitely one of the more creative things they made in, you know, recent memory. While it is well designed, I don't think it's for me. But if you like it, you should try it out. Next is Linkstrider, which gives 2 support and 1 wildcard mantra slot. First of all, it gives the ability to teleport to certain places within luminance from a campfire. You do have to unlock the teleport points with weird purple asteroid things that you'll find around the map. Anyway, the first move is Symbiotic Link. It is usable on either allies or enemies. It can be used to either buff allies with 20% damage resistance, a small speed boost, and 5% damage buff, or it can be used to debuff enemies with a slowdown effect. Regardless, it is destroyed when you're hit by a non-ally. And next is Symbiotic Sustain, which will sacrifice 7% of your health for 15% on an ally who is linked to you. A Bloodless Gem can be used to reduce the self-damage, and wearing the helmet, Deep Score, and Cask can actually be worn to negate all of the self-damage from it, so it's great for support builds. And finally, there's Symbiotic Leech, which drains 7% of an enemy who you're linked to's health, and gives you the flat amount of health back. So 7% of the Duke's health will generally fully heal you, but 7% of a Freshie's health will barely heal you since it's giving you the flat number to their 7%. Overall, this oath is super good for support overworld builds. It, however, is basically useless in Chime of Conflict, so don't use it in 1v1s, since you kind of need a team to make it work. work. If you like ganking in the overworld with a lot of people, or you like guild wars and stuff, it's amazing. But outside of that, it's kind of not that great. It can be used for PvE because symbiotic leech doesn't, you know, scale the health as a percentage. So you could be using it on bosses and you'd get like 100,000 health for 7% of their health. And then it's also just doing 7% true damage to the boss or the enemy. It's actually really good for PvE. But generally this is much better for PvP because of its other benefits. Next up is Silent Heart, which has a requirement of 75 weapon stat, no attunement, 25 strength, and 25 charisma or agility. And to be killed by someone with an attunement, it gives 2 posture, 10 health, and 10% mantra damage resistance. All of Silent Heart's abilities are passives that change your base combat mechanics. You gain 25% faster grip speeds, running attacks that miss now send out a ranged projectile, Ankle Cutter, which adds a sliding attack AoE, Lodestar, which is a passive that makes your uppercuts and crits silence people, disabling mantras for 3 seconds, and Dread Fighter, which is a bit more, you know, because it's just a lot more, which makes it so parrying, landing flourishes, or criticals gives you a stack of Dread. Each stack of Dread increases your damage multiplier up to 10%, and increases your mantra resistance by up to 15% when they're both maxed out. Getting hit by any mantra removes your stacks completely. And finally, Manikati, which makes it so when you have Dread stacks, your uppercut is replaced by a weird auto-targeting spam hit thing. It's good. Now, I know I say weird uppercut spam hit thing because I have no idea what it is. Like, it's just, it looks weird. You know, this looks like something Akuma would use in Street Fighter. Regardless, you all know what it looks like. I don't even have to put the GIF up, because you all know what it looks like and you all know exactly what it is. Anyway, this is a PvP 1v1 focused oath, perfect for the Chime of Conflict, because in a gank you're going to be getting hit with mantras a lot and using all of your stacks because you're not going to be able to like focus on everyone at once. But in a 1v1 you can just parry every mantra, keep your stacks, and then just spam someone and they can't do anything because they're silenced the whole time. Next is Jetstriker, which gives you 1 wild card, 1 agility mantra slot, and 8 passive agility, along with 5 health, 5 ether, and 12 more passive agility from all the talents, which is unique about Jetstriker. The talents that you get from it actually do give you stats, unlike most of the oaths. As a passive, you can steal momentum from people you hit, making you faster. On Flourish, you also teleport to someone for a follow-up, and the momentum bar, which raises and at max increases mantra damage and changes some of the VFX of some mantras. As your final 2 passives, you get upgraded dashes, which you can carry you with the wind, and upgraded climbing, which basically does the same thing but vertically. For mantras, you get False Strike, which teleports behind someone and hits them, Jet Kick, which is a ranged melee move that kicks you forward into someone, that can be used in combat but needs to target someone or out of combat for movement. Overall, Jetstriker is a decent PvP oath, but there's a way better options that I would recommend over it for most builds. It can be pretty fun though, so use it if you like it, but generally it will never be considered optimal because even after its rework, it's still worse than most other options. Second to last is Blade Harper, a super blatant reference to Bleach. It requires 75 of any weapon stat and 25 strength or agility. However, most builds have both, so it shouldn't really matter much, so just focus on the 75 weapon stat, I guess. It also gives you 2 combat mantra slots. The first passive is Lithe Step, which is just a Sunito flash step from Bleach. The next passive is Soaring Storm, which buffs your uppercuts, but a lot of high-level players actually consider it to be worse than stock uppercuts, which is strange. I don't know why. I haven't really asked for an in-depth explanation. I just heard No-Go and some other people talking about how it sucks. The next passive is Untouchable, where after hitting your opponent consecutively, you activate True Strength mode, which buffs some of your moves, your crits, and your M1s. The move Reveal can also be used to enable or disable True Strength mode on command. And the final passive is Float Like a Butterfly, which allows you to cancel an air dash into an AoE of slashes when True Strength is active. And this is actually an amazing mix-up tool, so it's really good for PvP. And the first combat mantra is Palm Strike, which is exactly what it sounds like, but with True Strength follows it up with a flurry of slashes, because, you know, they had to make it like Sukuna. This is like Cleave and Dismantle. This is when he touches someone and cuts them up into a little million pieces. I'm not even joking. This entire oath is Bleach and Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, you guys couldn't have gotten more blatant with it. Anyway, the other combat mantra is Decimate, which cuts through your opponent and can auto-grip low-health players. Wow, even more Jujutsu Kaisen inspiration for this one. This oath, this is a little bit off topic because it's supposed to be a video showcasing all the oaths and talking about them, what they're good for. Obviously, this one's good for PvP. Crazy blatant references. Like, the devs are getting seriously, like, the ones who are working on the weekly content updates are running out of content if they're having to, like, copy anime this hard. It's insane. But you can make a Bleach and or Jujutsu Kaisen Sukuna build now because of this. Actually, second to last, we have Contractor, which I actually almost forgot. Contractor has no actual requirements other than having Bell and then Reputation with Etria and the Ministry, and it gives you 2 combat mantras and 10 Ether. Oh, sorry, Ether, because you guys prefer that pronunciation. I hate all of you, I'm gonna keep saying Ether. Anyway, its first passive is Hidden Tendril, which makes it so landing any physical mantra or a critical attack or a flourish will attach a tendril to someone. And then the second passive is String Trick, which ties into this. But basically, if you attach tendrils to 2 people, then it will bring them close together in front of you, allowing you to actually group up people for combos and stuff, which makes this really good for like boss raiding and ganking. Now, the first combat mantra is going to be Judgment, which, you know, funny Ultra Kill reference in the name, but not actually. It just puts like hidden tendrils on people and it just lifts them up into the air and does a ton of damage to them, and it can actually auto grip people who are low. It is ventable though, so most people are just going to vent it most of the time. Next up is Lord Slice, which is quite literally just Owl Slash from Sekiro. It's Owl Slash from Sekiro. I mean, it can slam people into the walls since it like carries them with you a little bit, but it's Owl Slash from Sekiro. And the last move is Equalizer, which is a little blue aura that goes around you that turns into a counter, which Equalizer basically just counters someone and then it just brings them into like a judgment sort of thing, and it just strings them up. You can hit them with anything you want. It's free. Overall, Contractor is definitely a PvP oath, you know, mostly because it just doesn't work on non-humanoid NPCs. Like monsters, just none of the moves work on monsters except for like Lord Slice and I think Judgment, but then like the counter just gets bypassed by monsters, and then Hidden Tendril just doesn't work on monsters. So it would actually be pretty good for PvE if they made it so Hidden Tendril and String Trick could work on monsters, because then if you hit a bunch of them, you could group them all together to be eaten up by like a bug like AoE or something. But right now it doesn't do that, so it's just terribly useless in PvE and only works in PvP. And finally we have Chainwarden, which has the requirement of 40 total points spread within Fortitude, Willpower, and Strength. It gives you 1 wild card and 1 combat mantra slot. The first ability is Restrain, which kicks someone dealing true damage. The next move is Rupture, which is a chain that pulls people in if you M1 and kicks them away after. The first passive is Perpetual Wrath, which makes it so every chain you land makes it do more damage. The next passive, Chain Lash, puts a chain on anyone you flourish, allowing you to pull them in or use the final move, which is Detonate, which makes the chain explode, dealing damage to the target who is chained. That was every oath. Shout out to Cyberboy21, Jersey Drake fan, and Goobka. I love you all. I hope you enjoyed, and if I missed anything somehow, which I don't think I did, leave it in the comments down below. Come to my stream. I love you all, and goodbye.